All right, welcome back to the Nexus podcast live from RSA Conference. My friend Diana Kelley is here. Diana is the Chief Information Security Officer for Protect AI, a cybersecurity company working on preventing threats to artificial intelligence systems, like it says in the name. Diana knows her stuff. She's held security leadership positions at Microsoft, IBM, Symantec, a few other stops along the way. We even did some work way back when I was at Tech Target.
We absolutely did.
Yeah.
Best editor ever.
You were definitely one of my favorite contributors, so I'm really happy you're here. Amazing to see you. How you doing?
It's good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Still like coming to RSA? I mean, it's like 20-something for me.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how it's changed over the years, but no matter what, it is always a great place to come see old friends and, connect that you don't have the opportunity through the rest of the year. So
I was at an event last night, and it was I went just to see people, just to see faces that I see once or twice a year. So that's always the best part.
Yes, it really is. Yeah.
All right, so tell me a little bit about your role and your company, because, I mean, you guys are in the thick of what everybody's talking about.
We are in the thick of it, yeah. So I am, as you said, the Chief Information Security Officer. So the security building and managing and running the security program is on me. I also do a lot of education, because as we are trying to protect AI, some of that means that we have to help the market understand, why do we need to protect AI? What do we have to do to protect AI? And that's really our mission. Is we have a platform that goes end to end throughout the machine learning AI lifecycle, so that you can secure your AI from end to end.
So, all right, so what does it mean to protect AI? Let's just start at the big picture question.
So, starting with, we have a product called Radar, which would be at the very beginning of the life cycle, where you can do things to find information like metadata and other information about your models, so you can understand what's running in your workloads. Things like, where did the models come from? Have the models been scanned? What data were they trained on? What are the software dependencies? So that you can manage the risks related to the models that you're deploying. We also have a tool called Guardian, which does scanning automatically. You can put it into your CI/CD pipeline. So if you're downloading models from one of the public repositories like Hugging Face, you can scan it before you run it, and before you train it, before you let it actually work on your system. And that's a huge deal, because you think about it, we scan a PDF that's attached to an email coming into our inbox. Why would you download a model from a public repository and not scan that too? We can also scan any model. So if it's a first-party model, if you created it, we can scan it for malicious information or activity or backdoors that might be in there. So operators to understand, is it safe to run this model? Which is, again, something a lot of organizations aren't doing. And if you think, well, open source, maybe not everybody's using it. There's research from Synopsys that 80% of the tooling being used for analytics and AI is coming from open source. So big companies are using it. We also have a Sightline, which is a vulnerability feed related to AI and ML. It's the first one of its kind, and it's powered by thousands of researchers in our Hunter community. We have a bug bounty program, which incents them to help and come and look for where the vulnerabilities might be in the supply chain. And then we work with the maintainers to make sure that those are patched, and we put that information into the vulnerability feed. And we have a tool called Layer, which sits at the end of the process between the prompt, the person putting the prompt in, so you put in the prompt to go into the LLM, tell me about this, ChatGPT, or, write this for me, Anthropic Claude, and the LLM itself, so you can create policies to learn how are people using these LLMs and these chatbots, what they're saying to it, and if, for example, you've forbidden certain information to go out of your organization, it can identify if that's coming from either the prompt itself or in the other direction, if you want to know what that LLM is responding.
So, to go to your point about like the open source models, are you seeing compromises of these models, or is it something a little bit more?
No, we have research. We can scan. We've scanned all of the models in Hugging Face, and yes, we have seen issues within the operators, within the way that these models run. Things like calling. One, for example, was calling to an S3 bucket. And it could have downloaded software. It wasn't actually downloading the software, but at that point it had the ability to download software and execute it.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and other backdoors. So yes, we are seeing those. And there are scans in Hugging Face, but our scan goes a little bit deeper.
So that must be a pretty big eye opener for
Yeah.
for somebody when they see that output.
Yes, I mean of the four that I talked about, as you could well imagine, Guardian is one of the most interesting. We're hearing a lot of interest here at the conference around it. Yeah.
And is that like a typical compromise, kind of just beaconing out somewhere to either upload or download something?
I mean, that's certainly one way to compromise. You could have malicious code potentially, because the way that these models are made, they're serialized. And when you deserialize them, it can, if there's anything pernicious or malicious in there, it would execute. So, yeah, we have seen quite a bit of activity you wouldn't want running in your organization. Yeah.
Just from your point of view, just where are enterprises with their use of AI and especially understanding of these threats?
I think we're at the early stage. November 2022, when ChatGPT was released, it really opened a lot of people's eyes around the possibilities and the opportunities with generative AI.
Right.
And we need to obviously secure and manage the use of that, because we have generative AI. We have the third-party models that people are using, like the Claudes, the Anthropics. We've got embedded chatbots and Gen AI within things like help desk and other other use cases along those lines, and what people are creating themselves. So there's a lot of use around there that we obviously need to secure and think about. But the interesting thing is that machine learning and machine learning models has been used for many, many years, decades in some cases. Financial services institutions, large ones, can have not just hundreds, but up to thousands of models running. Big pharma, again, any entity, any sector that is needed to analyze lots of data and find patterns within that data or predictions has been using machine learning for a long time. But machine learning hasn't always been on the radar of security. So in some ways, in some organizations, it's been operating as a sort of a form of shadow IT. So it's this Gen AI, now we have that surface to protect, but also it's helped to put some light on what's been happening with deployment of machine learning, so that organizations are seeing that there's an area in many companies where they can get better about the rigor for governance.
Yeah. So was ChatGPT kind of the trigger for security to kind of look deeper at these environments?
I think it was absolutely a big inflection point, because all of a sudden AI went from some people were just, we're going to have self-driving cars, to, oh my gosh, my CEO is trying to write press releases and emails with these third-party tools. Can I trust them? Are they okay? And what kind of information are we giving to them?
So what kind of questions are the commonalities about kind of some of the challenges that companies are having, or questions about security, what happens to the data I'm dumping into these models? Or
that's it. The biggest questions are, can we see, know, and manage what's happening within our AI lifecycle? Can we understand what we're using, how we're using it, and where those systems are vulnerable?
And are they surprised by the answers? What's the interaction? There are sort of two basic camps. I mean, I don't want to, take it down to two. Right? There's always nuance and a lot of different. But there are the organizations that understand there's been an issue, understand that they do have a lot of machine learning that's been deployed. Now they're adopting a lot of Gen AI, and they're saying, we get that there's a problem, but can you help us understand what those problems are, where those problems are, and what we can do about them? And then we have other groups that are, still not there yet. Let me just leave it that way. And so in terms of reining it in, do you start with a policy discussion, or is it, I know you guys are obviously embedded in the tech side of it, but
we start with trying to understand how the organization is using AI and machine learning. If they're building, if they're buying, because if they're building, there's we have a community around MLSecOps and building security into the machine learning lifecycle. So start having a conversation about where within that lifecycle machine learning can be built in, and help them understand if they do need new tools, because these are different. These are software assets. This is software. This is math. It's not magical unicorns running in our systems. However,
I think everybody thinks it is, though.
A lot of people. But it's a different kind of software asset, and you need to think about the threats in a different way. You think about, for example, data. Right? Traditional DevSecOps, the biggest question we have normally when we're talking DevSecOps is, are you using production data as training data? Because that's a huge no-no, and that's where we really focus. So you want to have sometimes synthetic data or tokenized data is what you train up on a system to test it or stress test the system. In machine learning, you actually have to use data. You can't there's some instances where synthetic can work, but you need to have good data sets in order to train this model to do what you need it to do. So how do you get that data? Where is that data from? Who was training the model? These are all questions that are not standard in regular development, software development, but they're unique to AI. And again, some of these risks, like deserialization, this is something, again, that's not looked at as, you're not using model files in non-AI ML development. So it's a software asset, but it's a new kind of software asset. It's a new kind of development approach and life cycle, which is different. It's part of your development life cycle, but it's unique to itself. So looking at that and those unique risks to make sure that companies can build security in across that life cycle.
Just to go back to a point you made about like build versus buy with these, what's the breakdown there? Are most buying or building their models?
It really depends on the organization and what they're trying to accomplish. So again, these foundational models that are used in these open source repositories are helping organizations to innovate and move so much more quickly. So downloading a model and then training it for your own use case is very, very common. Companies a lot of organizations are doing that. And then for generative, the big Gen AI bots or the Copilot sets where they tend to go out to the third parties.
And where are we in terms of the skills needed to train and properly train these models?
In one sense, we have the skill. And I think that's a really important thing for organizations to understand, that machine learning engineers, some data scientists, they understand the machine learning lifecycle. They understand how to train the models. They understand security, understands how to secure. So we've got everything. What we need to do is to bring these groups together to help educate each other so security can learn how machine learning works and understand how to start to threat model with a machine learning mindset, and to red team and to test and to MLSecOps build security. And machine learning starts to need to talk to security to see where the risks are. A really interesting thing I read last summer was a Medium piece that was written by a data scientist, and it was a beautiful piece, well written. He was trying to sound the call around, hey, other data scientists, you know what? You're storing passwords and API keys, which are basically static passwords, unencrypted in your Jupyter notebooks. This isn't best practice. We shouldn't be doing it. And wonderful that a data scientist took that initiative and wrote that, and it's fantastic. Sure. But if they had talked to a security person years ago, of course, a security person, our hair would be on fire, but you've got a password unencrypted, this is the worst. So that's why. So we've got the skills. What we need to do is bring these groups together and do that knowledge transfer so that we can have those skills cross.
I mean, from a security approach, is it radically different from IT in terms of, understanding the risk and how to kind of mitigate it?
I don't think it's radically different, but it is different, and that's so the tools need to be tuned and designed for AI and ML. The testing needs to be designed for AI and ML. When you're threat modeling, you need to threat model not just the software, but also things like the data sets and the training. So it's not that we're going from 0 to 100. Yeah. But there is an absolute, very critical and important delta that we need to bridge so that we can go from a secure development lifecycle to a secure machine learning lifecycle.
So how does an organization know if their model or their environment is secure in these respects? What are they looking for? What do you, as a vendor in this space, tell them? Like, what are the outputs, I guess?
Well, I mean, that's it, is looking at the outputs, creating, as I was explaining with Radar, creating policies, or with Guardian, or with Layer, creating policies around what this should look like, what it should. So are there dependencies in software that are okay? Is there a data set that's not allowed? Is this model, has it been scanned, and is it secure? Is it safe to run? So all of those things, starting to look at these different signals and creating policy, technical policy, that can be enforced to ensure that those models and those systems are running as expected and at the right risk level.
And so give me like a snapshot of some of the threats that are, kind of tailored.
Yeah, so thinking about with use of a Gen AI, for example, if you want to use something like Layer, you could say anytime that you see a certain kind of information go across from a prompt, you're going to stop that. And then the policy would alert if you said, I don't want anything about our financials or about a potential merger coming up. You're merging with company secret, right? So you'd put in, anytime you see secret, let me know, because that's a violation of our policy, and then you get an alert. Also, coming back from the chatbot, there's that case with Air Canada where a chatbot told a customer, just, that's okay, don't use that ticket, buy a new one, we'll reimburse you. And so you could create alerts around if anything that says buy a new ticket, maybe you don't want your LLM or your chatbot ever to say that, so that would be an alert that you would set a policy on.
And are the exposures the same in terms of, how an attacker would kind of get a foothold?
What's interesting is of our threat research team, and they put out a podcast called Between Two Vulns where they do deep dives. One of the interesting things is that a lot of times the way that they get into to have access to models is through the standard software that's running. So it may be that an attack could begin with a phish. Oh, well, we're familiar with phish, right? Maybe a local file include or a remote code execution vulnerability in the system that's running the machine learning model. Yeah. But then once they're in there, and those are all very typical security folks were like, tell me something new at this point. But now they get into the model and perhaps they poison the data it's being trained on, or they train it with their own data set or something else that so it's that bit of it's running in our systems, but we have to look at the unique risks and the vulnerabilities to the life cycle of machine learning.
Maybe this is a dumb question, but why would an attacker target these models? What do they get out of it from an attacker's point of view?
Again, it's going to depend on a use case, but I'll give you a simple one. Let's say you've got most financial services, generally if you're moving money around at a bank, machine learning is involved.
Okay.
If you have, for example, a robo-advisor, that robo-advisor is machine learning, and it is telling you when to buy and sell. So for example, if I wanted to move a market, I might manipulate a model so that it dumped one kind of stock and then change something in the market. It could even be, there was a CISO that was talking about, they're concerned about what I think of as the Office Space attack. Because if you remember the end of Office Space, they were just pulling the one
That's
penny,
hilarious.
and they're concerned about a model that shaves a penny or two off of every single transaction. Sure. So these are some, it's going to depend on sector and use case, but those are some examples.
That's pretty invisible, that kind of attack.
That's a concern. The other concern with, yes, that's very invisible. The other thing is that if we tend to trust what comes out of computer systems, right. I asked you to multiply two 10-digit numbers right now, you're not going to get a paper and pen, are you? You're going to get your calculator out. And if when you see that answer, you're not going to say, I better validate the answer from that calculator. You're going to trust it. So if the model says buy this stock now, if
you're going to trust it.
Yeah.
So I know you're doing a presentation this week on machine learning SecOps.
Yeah.
Can you kind of do the compare and contrast between what we understand as DevOps versus...
Yeah. So I've created this, I overlaid working with machine learning engineers, because I am not, over the standard infinity loop of DevSecOps, I looked at the different phases and mapped out what machine learning, where it's different. So where we have at the beginning of the DevSecOps lifecycle, we start with requirements. Well, in machine learning, it's really more scope. It's, do we need to apply AI to this? Because maybe we don't. AI isn't necessary everywhere. Can we get the data that we need? Is it available? The next thing that you would find in the DevOps life cycle is as you go from requirements to you start to design. Right. The next step in machine learning, though, is data preparation.
Okay.
Can we get the data? Where's it at? Do we have the right data sets? Is it labeled? Do we need to label it? All that. Is it cleaned? Is it anonymized? So finding the data sets, making sure that data prep is a massive part of machine learning, which again, as I said, in dev, we're not used to this focus on data that way. Then you go into model training. So instead of code, you're really training the model in the MLOps lifecycle. And it's one phase training, but that doesn't mean that you train it and it's done. It could be a loop of you train it and you retrain it, because you have to make sure that what's the output of this model is accurate, or at least purpose fit for what you're intending to do. So those are at that beginning of that loop. Those are the big differences, and then you get into deployment and monitoring. But again, when we think about monitoring software, we're looking for, is it failing? Is it behaving anomalously? Whereas with a model, you're looking for the accuracy over time. And models do drift. There's this concept of drift with models. And that means that the weights are changing inside. And it can be that it's getting more accurate, but it could also be that the output is becoming less accurate. So you observing the output of the model, which with software, we tend not to expect the software. Software doesn't, quote, drift. Someone could be attacking it and changing its behavior, but it's not drifting, and when we see that behavior, it may be more of a warning in software, whereas as we were talking about with the drift, if it's a couple pennies, maybe it's not going to be as apparent to people.
Right.
So as you're still doing monitoring, but you're monitoring for unique artifacts and information around machine learning and use.
And is security, I assume, is at every step you can have some facet
You add
of
security in every single step. Yeah.
Is it more necessary, important in any of those, or is it kind of equally weighted?
It's equal. It just is when in DevSecOps, you need to do the right amount of security at the right phase.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little out of scope, but I'll ask it anyway. Any sense of how security teams are applying AI for defense these days, or?
Yeah, there's some really interesting things going on with AI defense, with being able to parse through massive amounts of data and figure out, find patterns that maybe weren't seen before. Writing reports, even as researchers are finding information using AI to help with the templatization and the writing the reports. But the really big one is machine learning is fantastic at finding patterns within massive amounts of data. And what do we have in security? We have massive amounts of data. So being able to find the patterns in there and the potential anomalous behavior is really helpful.
I mean, is that on the generative AI side in terms of, or can you use it to say, okay, I've got 1,000 servers, how many of these are beaconing out and that are vulnerable to XYZ, CVE, whatever?
Yeah, things like report writing are definitely leveraging generative AI and helping and working with generative AI to accomplish that. But when you're looking for the patterns, you're usually using more traditional machine learning. And sort of a note which a lot of people get confused about is that machine learning powers generative AI. It's a form of machine learning that's powering it. So this is all machine learning under the hood. Right. It's just that as people use them, they interact very differently with Gen AI.
And I don't know if it matters, but like how actively are attackers looking at using AI to build exploits, malware?
I mean, we've already seen a lot of focus from the attackers on things like the deep fakes, and there have been some big transfers, and deep fakes, whether it's video or voice. So they're certainly looking at that. Trying to find exploits, right? Sending code into the Gen AI, and if it's open source, saying where's the vulnerability? Help me to find the vulnerability. So yeah, I mean, unfortunately it's always an arms race, and as we get tools to help us be stronger and more secure, then the attackers are also going to be looking at them.
But from a defender's point of view, it doesn't really matter if malware is AI generated or something like that. It's just a quicker turnaround maybe for.
I mean, yeah. If the malware was is it going to increase the velocity and the volume, because that could then overload the existing systems. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And okay, so last question. You mentioned the bug bounty. I think that's really cool.
Hunter. Yeah.
Just tell me a little bit more about.
Sure. So Hunter is a free, open community that's focused on finding open source vulnerabilities in open source software related to the ML and AI supply chain. And we have a list of the bounties up on our site. We also, but we're kind of not stopping there, because we really do want to make the world a safer, a safer AI-powered world. So we also have a community where our lead threat researcher has given resources explaining how to do threat modeling for AI, how to go after systems to be able to understand if there's a vulnerability. And then again, if you find something like that, bring it to us. We work with the maintainers to help them understand how to fix it, and then when they fix it, we promote that they've gone out. We have a vulnerability report every month that we publish to help organizations understand where the vulnerabilities are, that they can patch it, and what they can do to help make themselves more secure. So Hunter is this really great way to get involved in the good side, helping to make the world a safer place for AI by finding out where the vulnerabilities are. And again, that training on how to be a threat hunter really can be helpful, either if you want to join the hunter community and be a hunter, or if you're a red teamer or a penetration tester at your organization, to help you expand your skill set so that you can pen test websites. You can also pen test AI.
Are there a lot of bugs moving through the program, and is it exceeding expectations? Or?
We do. Oh gosh, I wish that I had known you were going to ask that. I think we had a bumper crop of bugs. I think it was 20 something, and I hope I got that right in the last report. But this is a free report. People can subscribe to it. It's the vulnerability report. Just go to hunter.com, protectai.com, and you can sign up.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Diana. This has been great.
Thank you, Mike.
You definitely taught me some stuff.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.